Hello everyone. Before we begin, I just want to remind you that we are still very much in the realm of myths and legends. The oldest surviving fragment of written history that we have of this period was written more than 4 centuries afterwards, and this was a religious society with less than a 10% literacy rate that truly believed that Romulus was the son of God. These are allegorical stories, but they are based on reality, and it's all we have, and I think they're neat, so I'm gonna tell them. So, disclaimer out of the way, where were we? Having avenged the tyranny of King Amulius in the kingdom of Alba Longa, the twin demigods of war, Romulus and Remus, had founded a city and fought to the death, leaving Romulus as the king and Remus as a line in the ground. With Remus gone, everyone agreed that the Palatine Hill was in fact a great spot to build the city, and they set to work. The new city was open to all, and newcomers flocked in. Romulus sorted through the new arrivals and picked out all the able-bodied men of military age, and he came out with about 3,000 foot soldiers and 300 cavalry, creating the first Roman legion. He then chose 100 wise old men to act as his advisors and to make laws and do boring stuff while he went off and cracked skulls. And he named this group of old men the Old Men, or in Latin, the Senate. The descendants of these men would become the patrician class. This is important. Old man babies are patricians. Everybody else is a plebeian. Now, the men of Rome were strong and fierce, but there was a problem. It turns out that all of those new citizens that showed up were mostly bandits, debtors, exiles, and escaped slaves. And, most importantly, they were almost exclusively male, which meant that Rome was a sausage fest of disreputable men, and their neighbors wanted their daughters to have absolutely nothing to do with them. Romulus had to think and realized that even if Rome were to remain undefeated in the field of battle, the city would be lost to time if they didn't get some babies in the oven. And so it was that Romulus decided to throw the first citywide rager. Invitations went out to all the neighboring tribes for an anniversary celebration of Neptune Equester, and asked only that the guests bring their whole families and come prepared for the holiday bash of a lifetime. Free food, free booze. Just about everybody came, because who doesn't want to drink like a fish on Neptune Equester? Soon the streets of Rome were awash with Etruscans, Albans, and most numerous of all, the Sabines, or the Sabines. Everyone had a wonderful time. There was singing and carousing. The city was actually pretty cool. Romulus was the perfect host, and when he got up, all the people started chanting, "Speech, speech," and he was like, "All right, do it." And the guests were like, "Do what?" And then all the Roman men pulled out their swords and stabbed the foreign men to death. And they grabbed the women and they went home together with their new wives, where they all lived happily ever after. From these abductions, great armies were sent against Rome. 3 came from the Etruscans, wisest and fairest of the Latins. 7 from the Albans, great warriors and craftsmen, and 9 from the Sabines, who above all else desired their wives back. Romulus raised the legions for the first time, and the tribes were defeated in turn until only the Sabines remained. But rather than fighting on open ground, the Sabine king, Titus Tatius, bribed a girl named Tarpeia into opening the gates of Rome, and before they could be stopped, the Sabines had pierced to the heart of the city and taken the Capitoline Hill. A foreign army was inside of Rome, and wicked Tarpeia reveled in her riches, a traitor to her people. But this is an allegorical story, and there needs to be a moral lesson. So Tarpeia was then thrown to her death from the southern cliff of the Capitoline Hill, and everyone cheered and named the cliff the Tarpeian Rock in her memory, forever a reminder that wealth and power are not worth the loss of honor. Once everyone was done sniffing their honor glands and high-fiving about what good people they were, it was time to get back to killing one another. Or it would have been, and I'm just going to say Sabine because I don't know which pronunciation is correct, and this one's easier. The Sabine women had decided that they'd seen enough, and they weren't about to watch their fathers and brothers butcher their husbands and children without them doing something about it. And so they threw themselves between the two armies, causing the battle to stop. Titus and Romulus then had a powwow and decided that the best way to smooth over relations would be for the in-laws to move in. The Capitoline Hill was given to the Sabine people, and Romulus and Titus agreed to rule Rome together as equals. 100 old Sabine men were added to the Senate to balance political power in the city, and the plebeians of Rome were sorted into 30 voting blocks called curia that would vote on the laws that the old men came up with. And that's it. We've hit all the important plot points, so it's time to see our players off. Titus lasted 5 years as co-king of Rome before he was assassinated in the neighboring city of Laurentum for something that's currently unimportant to the narrative. And Romulus then spent the next 37 years slapping the Etruscans around as king of Rome and asserting military dominance in the region, until one day, as he was sitting on his throne inspecting his troops, a sudden storm whipped up, thunder clapped, and he was whisked off to heaven and definitely not stabbed to death by jealous senators. Goodbye, Romulus. So, we've gone over a lot today, but we're coming out on the other side with a basic understanding of some of the foundations of Roman life. First, we have the Legion. The Roman Legion will take many, many forms in the years to come, but right now it is made up of volunteer Roman citizens who can afford to arm themselves. If you can't afford to arm yourself, you can't join the army. Second, we have the beginning of Roman politics. 200 old men meet in a big house and brainstorm laws, and then some of those laws are brought before the plebeian representatives to be voted on. This is less democratic in practice than it sounds, and also probably totally made up. But most importantly, remember all those old man babies? Senator babies are called patricians, and they are better than other babies. Forever. Legally. This is important, in part because it's going to cause multiple civil wars. Next, we've been introduced to some of Rome's neighbors. Here's a map. At this point, the important players are the Sabines, the Etruscans, and the Kingdom of Alba Longa. Finally, we have some themes, mostly violence, rape, and barbarism, but keep in mind that there are 7 kings that make up our apocryphal pre-Republican Rome, so we will be adding a bunch of nuance as we go along. But that'll about do it for the day. I do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, let your cat know how cool I am, and as always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.